Hey guys, Shawn McBride with you here. Today we're going to be talking about asset protection planning, 5 key things that you should be knowing about asset protection planning, and we'll call this Asset Protection Planning 101. So we're going to be getting into your common questions, common issues I see when people try to do asset protection planning and planning around it. So this is part of the McBride Attorneys Law Show on YouTube. I'm Shawn McBride. I am an attorney. I have to note I am not your attorney based on this video. We're just going to talk about general principles of law. If you're interested in this topic, if it's important to you for your business, you should go consult with your attorney about your specific facts and circumstances. We're going to run through 5 key tips, 5 key things to know about asset protection. Make sure you know them, make sure you understand them so you build a better business and you really get the results that you hope you're getting. So let's jump into it. Number one tip on asset protection planning is very simple. It's not about hiding assets. There's this misconception out there that asset protection planning is about hiding assets, taking them away, pretending like they don't exist, and then just not having other people be able to find them. This is problematic because if you get involved in real litigation where your assets are attacked, which is the whole point of asset protection planning, right, is if somebody is going to sue you for a trip and fall, car accident, a business misdealing, because you said the wrong thing. If somebody's coming after your assets, if you hide them, at some point in the litigation, you're going to be asked to disclose your assets. And if you've hid them, either you're going to have to come clean and tell the court and the other lawyers where your assets are, or you're going to be in the unenviable position of having to lie. And what does that mean? That means perjury, right? So you're going to commit a crime in order to keep those assets hidden. So just hiding the assets is not asset protection. We need a bigger, broader, deeper strategy, something more meaningful than just let's hide the assets and let's not let anybody know what we have. Number 2 in asset protection is it generally has to be done before the event. And we see this mistake. I've been involved in these cases. Something bad happens. An event happens in business. An accident happens. Something comes where we know that we have potential litigation. We know we have assets that may be attacked. And then the person who is defending, who may have to pay, says, hey, let's do some asset protection. It's generally too late after the event. There are various laws out there, fraudulent conveyance, other laws, fraud generally, that say, hey, you can't just transfer your assets when you have this potential liability to somebody else, particularly if they're suing you. You know you might owe money to somebody, and then you're going to try to hide your assets. Generally not a workable strategy. So what we want to do is we need to do the planning before the event. We need to be ahead of asset planning. We can't come and wait for something bad to happen. So this needs to be done very early. It needs to be done very proactive. It needs to be done before the bad things that might happen. So if you want to protect your assets, get ahead of it early. You can't wait till after. Usually your choices are very limited after an event. Number 3, asset protection key, protection 101. Number 3 is it has to be a real transfer. So if we're going to protect assets, they have to stop being our assets. They have to go somewhere else legally, whether that's to a company, whether that's to another individual, a child, a parent, to a trust that is legally separate from us. There has to be a real transfer. We can't keep full control of the asset and expect to get asset protection, right? So control is usually one of the many bundles of rights that comes with being an owner of an asset. So if we attempt to not transfer that asset, maintain control, maintain the ability to pull that asset back, maintain the ability to control the buying and selling of the asset, or maintain the ability to use that asset again in the future, that's generally not going to be a completed transfer. And what's going to happen is if you end up in an asset protection situation where a court or another person is attempting to get to your assets and they find that you have this clumping of assets that you have control over, that you can pull back, that you can use, that you can enjoy as an owner, that you have the ability to sell, they're going to say, guess what? you're the owner of that asset. And as the owner of that asset, it's not outside of your asset realm. So one of the keys to good asset protection is to do a full and complete transfer out. Or, of course, another option, and this kind of overrides everything, is to insure assets, right? So rather than transfer the assets, to put insurance on them so that if there's a claim against that asset, the insurance company pays rather than going to your general assets. This is generally a good strategy with cars. Get as much insurance as you can to protect yourself in the event somebody gets injured in an accident that you're at fault for. Your home, you want to make sure that you have insurance on it so that if somebody trips and falls or somehow other liability, you're protected, right? So you have to really get rid of the asset, right? So you can't hide the asset. You can't keep control of the asset in a hidden way. And you can't wait till after the event. Those were our first 3 tips. Let's move on to tip number 4 with asset protection, which is you have to know your risks. If you're going to do good asset protection, you want to know what risks you're protecting against. Is the risk that you hit somebody with your car? Is it a risk related to your business? Is it a risk that you're going to injure somebody? Maybe you're in some type of a job where you might have the possibility of injuring other people. You drive a tractor trailer. You're dealing with the public. How do you think the risk is going to come at you? And that's going to start driving your asset protection strategy, right? Some of that can be covered by insurance. Some of the other stuff that you can't cover with insurance, you can then start thinking about how do you protect it through transfers, through trust, through other things. You really have to know what risk. Is it a creditor that's after you? Is it accrued liabilities? Is it some event, a tort where you might injure somebody? What is going to give rise to kind of these events where you think you might need asset protection? That's going to allow you to tailor your strategy. Just moving stuff around randomly or trying to hide as much as you can is not going to work. We already covered the fact that hiding assets is not asset protection. And the number 5 key to asset protection number 101, is you need to have a strategy, right? So you got to understand those risk points, and then you have to build a strategy. What does your life look like? What assets do you really need to enjoy the lifestyle that you want? How could you build that, right? Could you take a house that you own and perhaps transfer the remainder interest to a family member and just have use of it for the rest of your lifetime? Would that accomplish your goals and accomplish their goals? Is that a viable asset protection strategy? Could you use trust? Could you use other instruments to protect yourself to get the lifestyle you want? So you really have to do this as an overarching, encompassing strategy, which is going to require a conversation with your attorney. It's going to require really knowing what your goals and desires are. It's going to require knowing what your risk points are. But if you can bring all of those things together, you can really build a strategy to make sure that you understand where the risks are and you minimize that exposure should a bad event happen, right? Because that's really what asset protection planning is about, is if a bad event happens, there's an accident, somebody gets injured, somebody decides to sue you because you said the wrong thing. All of these types of events could lead to somebody attacking your assets. And if you have a strategy in place to understand what the risk points are and to understand what you need to be happy in life and how you can blend those together, that's when things are really going to take off. So let's summarize and pull this all together here so that we have a better understanding of asset protection. And if you're interested in this type of thing, go ahead and subscribe to the McBride Attorneys Law Show here on YouTube, because we bring regular tips to business owners and business leaders like yourself so that you can be more effective. So, number 1, can't just hide the assets, right? Asset protection isn't just move the assets somewhere, pretend like they don't exist. That's going to cause a lot of problems. Number 2, has to be done before the event generally. So you got to get early on this. You got to be planning ahead. You can't wait and respond. Number 3, has to be real transfers. Can't be fake transfers. You can't keep those strings of control generally. You're going to have to let go of assets in order to do effective asset planning. Number 4, you have to know your risks, right? If you're planning for risks, You got to know where your attack points are so you can defend it. It's a lot like playing chess. Where might I get attacked from? How can I defend from that attack? And number 5 is build a comprehensive strategy. This is going to work through everything. This is work through your personal assets, through your business, through your insurance. Really, a good asset protection plan is going to be comprehensive. If this is something you're interested in, drop your questions below. Want to hear from you, want to know what questions you have about this and other things. Of course, don't put your confidential information in there. Not attorney-client privilege, not protected if you post it on the internet. But I want to hear from you. If I hear enough questions about a topic, I may do another video about it. All right, folks, Shawn McBride. Looking forward to seeing you in the comments at McBride Attorneys Law Show on YouTube. Talk to you soon.